Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. Baki looked down at the corpse of the cage and his advisors. By the state of mummification they had been dead between 3 to 6 months. This news was going to send further ripples through Suna. After falling to win thanks in part to Gaara losing in a titanic struggle with a surprising Leaf Genin, Konoha still stood and now had Jiraiya the Frog Sannin to lead its forces. Suna had no one on Jiraiya's level currently, or who at least was willing to come out of retirement. Peace, Baki was sure, wasn't going to come cheap. There was however one unexpected dividend: Gaara had been knocked out of his madness into sanity. Though still dour, serious and bloodthirsty, the boy had begun developing emotionally. Kankuro had gotten his brother to laugh after performing a prank on Baki. The cold water from the bucket had been a shocker when he had opened the door. Temari had actually managed to hug her brother and get one back. At this point Baki still wasn't sure if he wanted to put a kunai into the Uzumaki brat for stopping Gaara or thank him for saving Gaara. Pulling back from his musings, Baki nodded to his fellow Junin. Get word to the council immediately. The rest of you help move the bodies, we've got a Hazekage to lay to rest. Temari tried hard to remain focused as she sat waiting for the council to call her in. The peace negotiations had proceeded rapidly between Konoha and Suna, as both councils knew that they looked weak. The invading forces had returned home a few days ago, and yesterday had been both her father's memorial along with the memorial for all the other fallen ninja. That had been draining enough, but the realization that her own father had been dead for months was a shocking bit of news. She had been looking forward to seeing things patched up between them all. Although things had been tense for years between them after he became the cage and made her look after Gaara, he was still her father. Now she was the oldest in the family looking after Kankuro and her half-brother Gaara. To say she was distracted wouldn't be overstating the case. So when Baki motioned her into the council room, it took a few minutes for the lecture to kick in. In a cool voice Temari said, "So to sum up, I'm being sent to Konoha to marry a Leaf Nin as part of the treaty. With this being my final mission as a shinobi of Suna." Baki sighed and addressed his soon-to-be former student. "Yes. However, you won't be going as a genin." Tossing a parcel to Temari, Baki added, "You earned this. Remember to watch your back. You leave tomorrow at nightfall." Catching the package, Temari pulled out a sand chunin vest. It was with a certain irony that she would be a sand chunin for only a little over 30 hours that she slipped it on. Temari gave Baki a nod and walked out, her face a mask of iron. Baki however frowned as he watched Temari leave. She had been his favorite student out of his genin, partially because she favored wind techniques but also for her quick wit. Not to mention she was the most normal out of the 3 siblings. Teaching her had been a rare pleasure. She was more than capable as a chunin and had been for years. Oh well, with her gone he could start reading his favorite books again, Baki thought as a light blush crossed his face. Ika was fine if you were straight, but Kietsu, Joy, had done wonderful things with the male characters. Slowly packing her things, Temari felt the tears roll down her face quietly when the door to her room opened. Her brothers didn't even have a chance to remark on her chunin vest and set face when she came home, as she had went directly to her room. "Temari, you are troubled," Gaara said quietly. "Yes." Temari could only say sadly. "Yes, I am." As the sand started to whirl around Gaara, he said in a harsh dark tone, "Who made you troubled?" The killing intent was coming off Gaara in waves. Yet for once Temari wasn't frightened. To her it felt as if Gaara was acting out to protect her, that she was perfectly safe. Calming herself a little, Temari replied as Kankuro came up the stairs. "The council. I'm being sent to Konoha as part of the treaty. I'm no longer going to be a sand nin." Kankuro caught the implications immediately. "Did they say who?" He asked in a quiet voice. No, but I'm guessing one of young men of the larger clans. Could be the shadow guy the first fought. Temari replied as she thought things over. She could only hope it was someone her age. A much older man wouldn't be pleasant. Even worse, it could be one of the bug users. Even now Temari still got the shivers at the thought of that clan. She hated bugs. Gura, still radiating murderous intent, eyed his sister. If they hurt you, I will hunt them down and kill them. Temari could only nod her thanks to her youngest brother. He wasn't able to express his emotions that well, but she knew that he would miss her. As the sand slowly died down, Gura managed to say slowly, "You are still my sister. Forever. I know, even if I become a leaf nin, you two are still my brothers." Temari said quietly. Gura turned and shot a glance at his brother. Help her pack. I must do something. With that ominous note, Gura left her room. Author's notes. Acknowledgements. I first must openly admit I was inspired directly by Lackey H's work of fan fiction Betrothal. Go read and enjoy that work first, please, as I know I did. This isn't a rewrite of said work, however, as I've decided to tweak the scenario and write the characters as I hear the voices in my head. Relationships. In the case of our young protagonists, Naruto and Temari, their relationship will defiantly be no more than PG. No other pairings will be getting much if any screen time other than the canon Uchiha fangirls and the Jiraiya still trying to pick up Copa feel on Suand. By PG I mean Naruto ain't going to get anything more than some lip locking. Sand siblings. In this work, Gura is a half-sibling to Temari Kankuro. Same asshole of a father, different mothers. Bashing. No real bashing will take place, characters will be flawed but human. No one's perfect or utterly irredeemable in terms of skill. Villains are still villains, however, although there will be those in conflict with. Kakashi looked over his team as they finished up for the day. Giving a mental sigh at the difficult topic coming up, he put away his book. Good job today. I won't be able to join you for tomorrow's tasks, however I have it ready. You'll be cleaning out a house and preparing it to be taken over. The former occupant died during the attack. Sakura, you're in charge, here's the keys. Kakashi said as he tossed Sakura the keys in a scroll. Sakura. Sasuke, you need to follow me to a meeting. Naruto. Iruka is waiting at Ichiraku Ramen for you. Kakashi followed up. As Naruto started bouncing from foot to foot, clearly torn between ramen and a meeting he was missing. Kakashi sighed and added, for Naruto's benefit, Iruka wanted to talk to you about the meeting's topic alone. He insisted. As the grin split across his face, Naruto replied, Yosh. See you tomorrow, Sakura-chan. Sasuke. As Naruto run down the road, Kakashi could only sigh. This wasn't going to end well. Turning to Sakura and Sasuke, Kakashi said, we're off to the academy, there's a few announcements that have to made. As the three made it to the academy, they saw the other rookie 9 and what was left of Guy's team waiting for them. Kurenai raised her eyebrows at Kakashi and glanced at the clock. Shrugging his shoulders, Kakashi said, Yo. Asuma rolled his eyes and said simply, there's 2 announcements to make. First, as of now, Rock Lee is on a medical discharge. Second, as part of the peace treaty with Sand, a marriage between 2 of the village's nins has been arranged. As the word sunk in, Shikamaru asked in a slightly bored tone, this affects us how? After all, it was likely to be an older Chunin or Junin, not any of the genin getting married. It was troublesome. Ino and Sakura exchanged significant glances. As long as it wasn't Sasuke, they were ambivalent. After all, it was only a week since the attack. Sakura was still sore from the sand user Gura. She wasn't too sure how she was going to react to a sand nin joining the village. In response to Shikamaru's question, Kurenai replied, apparently it's the sand kunoichi from the Chunin exam. Noticing the tense reactions from most in the room, Choiji was still munching away and Sasuke merely shrugged his shoulders. Kakashi spoke up, she was following orders. The cage was killed by Orochimaru and impersonated by him to manipulate sand into attacking. Any one of you could be put in the same position. As the genin relaxed slightly, Kurenai continued on, for now you all being assigned to keep an eye out for Temari and help her adjust to Konoha. When the marriage occurs, she will be made a leaf nin. Treat her like a future comrade, not an enemy. That brings us back to the first point. Guy said as he struck as his serious lecturing pose. Until Lee recovers and once more burns brightly with the fire of youth, my team is temporarily suspended. Since Konoha has much need of Junin, you will be forming 4-man genin cells. We will still train you, but you don't need our supervision for D-rank missions and low-risk C-rank missions. The assignments are as follows. Tenten will be joining Team Asuma under the leadership of Shikamaru, and Neji will lead Team Kurenai. Burn with the fire of youth and do Konoha proud. Guy proclaimed as he struck his good guy pose. Guy deflated a little after a moment as he clearly missed having Lee cheer him on. Sakura, however, asked in a slightly confused voice, Kakashi-sensei, who's joining and leading our team? Also, who's she marrying? Looking up from his book, Kakashi answered calmly, Temari. She apparently got made a chunin by sand, in response to your first 2 questions. As to who she's marrying. Kakashi paused to build up the dramatic tension as he let a smile cross his face. That would be Naruto. Naruto bounded down the street trying to think what Iruka-sensei wanted to talk to him about alone. Maybe it had to do with the Kyuubi, or maybe Shukaku. Frowning at this, Naruto thought of something else. Maybe they were going to have a talk with everyone's parents about something, and Iruka knew that Naruto wouldn't want him to be alone as all his friends' parents glared at him. Stupid Kyuubi, Naruto grumbled to himself, mucking things up. That was when Naruto realized he had reached Ichiraku Ramen. Slipping in beside Iruka, Naruto said with a genuine grin on his face, Iruka-sensei. Hey Naruto. Iruka said with a partial smile on his face. I'm buying you dinner tonight for doing so well at the Chunin exam. Beating Neji was no mean feat. He was his year's best rookie. Grinning at the praise, Naruto replied in an aw shucks voice, it was a good fight, but his family sure messed up his head up. Turning to the old man, Naruto said, 1 large miso ramen to start. Then a curry ramen. Turning to Iruka, who was eating his own ramen, Naruto asked, Iruka-sensei, what's the meeting about that you wanted to see me separately for? Hey Naruto, we'll talk after dinner, alright, your first bowl's ready. Iruka said as he rubbed Naruto's hair. Nodding, Naruto turned to his noodles and started digging in. Iruka, on the other hand, turned his thoughts to earlier in the day as his appetite started to leave him. Kakashi, what's this all about? Iruka asked as he followed the Junin to the council room. Are they planning on making Naruto stay in his apartment even after the building's been condemned? Iruka said as he considered how he and Naruto would fit inside his own tiny bachelor pad. No, it's bigger than that. You'll find out when you go inside. Kakashi said as he led the Chunin onwards. The two had clashed occasionally over Naruto, but then again Iruka was a lot less persistent and quieter than Sakura's mother. 3 minutes later, Kakashi grinned as he heard Iruka's bellow of, what? Are you all insane? The news had gone down as well as Kakashi expected it to. He himself had been surprised at the choice of Naruto, but a few of the elders and counselors had raised a few valid points in favor of the arrangements. He wasn't likely to find a family in Konoha ready to accept his pursuit of their daughter. Also, Hiashi had raised the issue that Naruto as a Jinchuriki was a priority target in any conflict and was going to be living a rather risky life. If the boy wanted a family, he was better to start earlier than later. Frankly, Kakashi suspected Naruto was going to stick around for a long time to come. But then again, one never knew with a shinobi's life. The more spurious reasons Kakashi knew were directed out of hatred to Naruto, but the good in this case Kakashi thought outweighed the bad. Besides, she was a spunky blonde, the kid had landed a looker. Iruka though was nearly having a heart attack. He's 12. How can he get married? Homura sighed in frustration. Sarutobi had specified that Iruka was to act as a stand-in parent for Naruto. Engaged for now. The marriage will take place when he's 14, which is the age of consent. Consent? How the heck can Naruto consent to this? Iruka yelled as a vein throbbed on his forehead. As a ninja of Konoha he will undertake the assignment. Koharu added. Glaring hard at everyone, Iruka added, I expect of course that you'll be putting them together in Naruto's apartment, of course. Which, considering it's supposed to be torn down next week, means the two will be on the street. No. Hiyashi replied calmly. Given the importance of the treaty and this marriage, the village will be buying the two of them a suitable property, something discreet, defendable and presentable. She is the daughter of the former Cage. A bachelor pad would be an insult. From Iruka's point of view, the conversation took a turn for the worse after that. A number of the old clans still arranged marriages at a young age for their children. For the rest of the ninja in Konoha it wasn't the case, and marriage treaties were usual between children of clans. In fact, the only good reason Iruka heard was that Naruto was practically the only one who could face her brother. At least some council members recognized Naruto's strength. Iruka watched Naruto work his way through a 10th bowl of ramen. Hey Naruto, slow down a bit, I want to teach you a jutsu after dinner. I can't do that if you have to sleep off your meal. Eyes brightening at the prospect of a new jutsu, Naruto bounced in his seat happily. A new jutsu? That's terrific, Iruka-sensei, you're the best. Slowly pushing his bowl back, Naruto was torn between his two loves of ramen and jutsus. However, he had just eaten 10 bowls of ramen, so that was more than enough to make a new jutsu very tempting. Jumping down, Naruto said, Thanks for the ramen, old man. As Iruka paid up, he called out, Naruto, we're going to practice ground 33. Nodding, Naruto charged ahead, practically flying at the thought of learning a new jutsu. Would it be an elemental jutsu, or maybe a genjutsu, or even better, a prank jutsu? A few minutes after Naruto got to practice ground, Iruka showed up. Hey Naruto, ready to learn a new jutsu? Iruka called out. Right. Here goes. Iruka said as he ran through 4 seals and called out, Kirei Kisaku no Jutsu. Naruto didn't notice it, but Iruka suddenly had minty fresh breath. So of course he started complaining. Kirei Kisaku no Jutsu. That's it. Rolling his eyes, Iruka decided to fill in Naruto on the jutsu's function. Naruto, listen to me carefully. Now I'm assuming you want to date girls, right? As Naruto nodded, Iruka continued on, this jutsu was designed to help on dates. Is it for perverted reasons? Naruto said, his face crunched up in concern. No Naruto. Iruka sighed. The conversation was going to be an absolute minefield. Say you like a girl. Sakura-chan. Naruto said proudly. Right. So do you think Sakura would want to be near you if you had stinky breath? Iruka asked patiently. As Naruto frowned, the gears in his mind ground slowly, then the answer hit him. I get it. In case I don't get to brush my teeth after a meal, this means I'll have good smelling breath. Sighing in relief, Iruka replied, exactly. It's designed to clean your mouth and leave it smelling fresh. So say you were on a date and after dinner you want to keep talking. Just use this jutsu and your breath will smell nice. Not for perverted reasons at all. Cool, I'm going to learn this now. Naruto declared happily as he worked through the jutsu. Going through the hand seals, Naruto shouted, fresh breath no jutsu. What followed was a mist of minty air that covered half the field. Shaking his head, Iruka said, Naruto, this only requires the same chakra as a henge. Not a cage bunshin. From the green fog, Naruto declared, right Iruka-sensei, I'll get it this time. An hour later, the practice ground was minty fresh and Naruto had managed the jutsu. Bouncing a little, Naruto's eyes were shining. Man, that's so cool, I have a jutsu counter for Kiba's nose now. Alright Naruto, I have something important to talk to you about. You ready to listen for a bit? Iruka asked. After all, he knew Naruto was more likely to pay attention after burning off some energy. Sure. I hope it's something cool. Naruto said happily. Right, I'm guessing you've forgotten my lectures on treaties, right? So when two hidden villages sign a peace treaty, tradition has it that two ninja from the respective villages get married to formalize the treaty. Usually the weaker village sends a kunoichi to the stronger. So do you follow me on this so far, future Hokage? Frowning a little, Naruto tried working things out, so the couple symbolize the deal. Do they get a choice in the matter? Not usually. It's considered a duty to fulfill by each village. Kunoichi over the years have insisted on certain changes to the tradition. The two usually must be within 5 years of age, and they may ask to choose between a smaller selection of ninja if they can't abide the ninja original selected. These changes were instituted after a long run of the spouses killing each other and voiding the treaties. That and kunoichi growing more powerful politically helped as well. Frowning at this, Naruto motioned for Iruka to continue on. So given our current situation after the Sound Sand attack, what do you think is happening right now? Iruka asked. Looking distinctively unhappy, Naruto answered, we're negotiating with Sound and Sand. Just Sand. It turns out their cage was killed and impersonated by Orochimaru. He tricked them into war with us. Iruka replied, waiting to see Naruto's reaction. Idiots. Naruto snorted in disgust. To have been fooled like that, Naruto would have known right away if the third had been replaced. Right. So as the weaker party in the negotiations, they are sending one of their kunoichis to Konoha. Iruka continued on, in fact I learned it's the one who wielded the fan in the Chunin exam. Sabaka Temari, she's the former Cage's daughter. Recalling the girl, Naruto went through his memories of the girl. From the confrontation at the start of the exams to the battles he saw her in. Her brothers are nuts. Naruto said quietly. It's not like she did anything really bad during the exam. I mean, she was following orders, right? That's correct. Do you remember the lecture on orders I gave you? Iruka asked. Yup. Ninja must obey the orders of superior officers. Even if it is something illegal, it's the superior's fault. Naruto answered. Right, so do you hold a grudge against her? Iruka asked carefully. Not for that. Naruto replied with a grin on his face. She didn't stick around, so I couldn't fight her to show my abilities off as a Chunin candidate. Rolling his eyes a little, Iruka replied cheerfully, it took me 3 tries to get to the 3rd stage. You'll do it next time for sure. Getting serious, Iruka decided to get to the real heart of the matter. This of course brings up the question of who was chosen as the ninja to marry her. I hope it's not Rock Lee. Imagine marrying fuzzy eyebrows and having fuzzy eyebrow kids. Naruto interrupted, laughing. Sighing a little, Iruka said, no, not Rock Lee. Actually, it's you. A pin dropped in the practice yard would have seemed loud in the silence that followed. Naruto's face had dropped and a blank stare remained for a minute. Iruka watched, feeling distinctly sorry for Naruto. The poor boy had to put up with a ton of crap over the years, and here he was being dumped on some more. Naruto. Sakura shouted in disbelief. Naruto's the one getting married. Inner Sakura, however, was excited. This meant more Sasuke time without Naruto harassing her. Hinata, however, had gone pale with shock, as all the blood had left her face. Ever since their conversation before the tournament, Hinata's crush on Naruto had deepened. Now her heart was being torn in two, as Naruto would be lost to her forever. Closing her eyes, Hinata felt the first tears start to flow. Neji and Kurenai both exchanged glances. Kurenai and Neji had talked before the meeting about Hinata's possible reaction. Neji had apologized to Hinata for his treatment of her, as she had been the only member of the main family to show him any kindness. Things were beginning to be patched up between all of the Hyugas. All due in fact to Naruto, but that still didn't mean his uncle would accept Naruto as an acceptable suitor. Hiashi had ranted about Naruto being trained by a long line of perverted ninjas, and how Naruto had joined their ranks. Neji had seen Hiashi go livid after the first public incident of Naruto's infamous jutsu. Kurenai, however, was surprised that Hinata had held together so well. Before the Chunin exam, Kurenai was positive Hinata would have fainted from shock. Kurenai knew that Hinata was going after a boy who hadn't noticed her that much. The difficulties of the teenage heart were going to cause Kurenai plenty of trouble over these next few months. Shino sat quietly as a wave of jealousy washed over him. Temari was, in his opinion, a fine potential mate, not to mention her legs, oh those long beautiful legs. Clenching his fist, Shino started to marshal his arguments to the clan elders to urge them to switch Naruto with himself. She deserved better than Naruto. Kiba, however, was on the floor howling with laughter. After a swift kick by Ino, he managed to choke out, poor girl. Being married to Naruto, before collapsing back into laughter. Ino, after a few giggles, remarked, I am so helping her shop to get better clothes on him. Ha, he's a boy who needs to be whipped and fast. Shikamaru merely remarked, troublesome. At least Naruto can deal with her brother. Sighing, Shikamaru considered the various aspects of the deal. Naruto had much improved since the academy, and Temari was a strong kunoichi. This smelled like something troublesome women like his mother or Ino would cook up. Choiji, however, was munching away quite happily. After all, weddings brought feasts and great food, not to mention all the other social occasions. Things were looking up thanks to Naruto. Tenten was looking forward to a rematch with Temari, as powerful battle-orientated kunoichi were few and far between. Hinata was still lacking confidence, so that had made her the only one among the group until now. Temari would make a welcome addition to the kunoichi ranks, and it would give her a decent rival. After having a weakness exposed in her technique, she had spent time training hard to remove it, further growing her skills, plus she would try and convince Temari to teach her how to use a tessin. Besides, Lee would be happy to hear a rival for Sakura's love had been removed. Sasuke, however, could care less about the dobi getting hitched. Well, maybe not nothing, since Naruto knew what it was like to have no family and it would be good for him, but it was the other issue that was really bugging him. Kakashi-sensei, why is she being made a Chunin and our leader? I mean, she'll be the third in terms of strength after myself and Naruto. Shrugging his shoulders, Kakashi answered, Sand assigned her the rank. As for why, seeing everyone quiet down to listen to his answer, Kakashi continued on, Temari and Shikamaru had the only match where the qualities looked for in potential Chunin could be found. Planning, strategy, keeping a level head and focusing on the mission. Leadership doesn't come from power alone. On the positive side, with a Chunin in charge, you'll likely be assigned to C-rank missions instead of D's. Sakura, however, was wincing. Sasuke had placed her dead last on the team. In fact, of the new team, she was going to be the only one who hadn't made it to the third round. The only thing she had to look forward to was the fact that at least another kunoichi was on the team. Pulling out his book, Kakashi finished off by saying, Oh yes, until Temari arrives, Sasuke, you'll be picking up the assignments from the tower each morning. That's all. But, what about Sakura-chan? Naruto cried out. Even after close to 2 years of trying, Naruto knew that he was still no closer to winning over Sakura's heart. Not after defeating Gaara, who had threatened her very life. Nope, all he was getting from Sakura was respect. A touch satisfying, but Naruto was darn sure that wasn't what he wanted. Dates, holding hands, hugging if he was lucky, and even hopefully Naruto knew he was shooting for the stars with the next one, kissing. I know this tough for you, Naruto. I pretty much lost my head at the news. Iruka said with a concerned look upon his face. Naruto's emotional and mental state could be surprising fragile on some points, Iruka knew, and he was afraid this could be one of them. This isn't just to prank me, right? 'Cause if they are, I'd like this over with. Naruto admitted with a sad look upon his face. His face shifting in anger, Naruto looked down at his belly and said in disgust, "It's all the damn demons' fault, isn't it? They're choosing me because of it." Sighing, Iruka put his arm around Naruto. He knew that Naruto had received precious little physical contact in his life that wasn't associated with violence. Partially. Some of the council still see what's inside you, not who you are. A few of the better ones, well, they figure you're still going to have a hard life because of the Kyuubi, so they thought the earlier you start a family, the more chance you'll have to enjoy them. A few see this as an award for your actions during the exam. Some of the others just want you under a wife's thumb. One of the older ladies said, "Troublesome boy needs to have a wife to keep him under control." Burying himself into Iruka's chest, Naruto shook for a minute. Iruka knew Naruto wasn't crying, but he still needed some means of emotional release. "Hey little brother, you alright?" Iruka asked after Naruto had stopped shaking. Pulling himself up, Naruto took a breath and asked, "She wasn't given a choice either, was she?" "I don't believe so. It's the decision a cage or council makes. The only other choice is to becoming a missing nin." Iruka replied honestly. "So she's been taken from her family and told to come here. It's a mission for the both of us," Naruto said slowly as his face became resolved. "I may not like it, but it's still a mission I'll fulfill." Sighing, Iruka mussed up Naruto's hair. "Thanks for taking this so well, Naruto. On the good news front, the village is buying a house for the two of you. They'll let you know before the end of the week." A grin split Naruto's face. "Hey, that is good news. I'd bet Temari would be pissed at camping out. Girls tend to be when they don't want to." "Too true." Iruka sighed as he remembered the shocked silence on one of his date's faces when he suggested a camping trip. Frankly, at this point in time, Iruka wasn't surprised Naruto was getting married before him. Almost all the girls he dated ended up wanting to be friends with him. It had been the comment of, "You're like a brother, kissing you just doesn't seem right," that was going to doom him to bachelorhood. Shaking his head, Iruka focused on the other message he needed to deliver. "You know Rock Lee, right?" At Naruto's nod, Iruka continued talking. "He's going to be months recovering, if ever. With the current manpower shortage, 4-man genin teams are being used for D-rank missions. The Junin senseis are being assigned missions to help cover things. So Team Guy is being suspended temporarily. Tenten has been assigned to Team Asuma, and Neji to Team Kurenai. Let me guess, Temari will be assigned to my team," Naruto said calmly. "Correct. Since she was made a chunin by Sand, your team will likely get C-rank missions," Iruka said with a slight smile on his face. Naruto really did have a good brain, it was getting him to use it. "Come on Naruto, let's head back. You've got a mission in the morning and I have a class to teach," Iruka said in a tired voice as he started to leave the practice ground. Jiraiya was not a happy camper. In fact, the best way to describe his mood right now was irked. This was not because he had been found peeping and had failed to get away, or at least failed to cop dozens of feels while being pummeled. Nor was it because he, the great frog hermit, had been talked back to by one of his summons, a trend that was on the rise ever since the brat had signed the contract. Heck, it even wasn't because Jiraiya was brooding over his fellow Sannin. Well, in the case of Suand, more lusting than brooding. she was still a fine-looking woman even under her genjutsu. Koharu and Homura were pestering him to put himself forward as the candidate as the fifth Hokage, a choice from their position that was understandable. After all, Jiraiya had trained under Sarutobi and had then trained the fourth, and who else stood out among the Konoha shinobi as a potential candidate? Aside from the fact that Jiraiya wanted the job just as much as he wanted to participate in an all-male orgy, Orochimaru coming back on his hands and knees repenting for all his past sins and vowing to give up his lust for little boys was more likely. Suand remained the best candidate. Their badgering had certainly left a sour taste in his mouth, but what was really irking him was the conversation he had with them regarding the fourth's legacy, one Uzumaki Naruto. With the news of whom Suna's council had picked as their sacrificial kunoichi for the treaty, the graybeards and doddering fools on Konoha's council decided to pick Naruto. Oh, a number of the older women grumbled that they wanted him under a woman's thumb, and a few actually thought they were doing a boy a favor since it was obvious he wouldn't be allowed to marry anyone in Konoha, but Jiraiya knew better. The majority of the idiots truly saw the boy as the Kyuubi, not as its jailer. Sipping away at the sake in front of him, Jiraiya planned out his next course of action for the boy. Sarutobi had left him a message when Naruto had finally become a genin. Jiraiya had slowly started his meandering way back at that point as he followed up leads as to what Akatsuki wanted with the Biju. A twinge of his conscience reminded him that Naruto would have been overjoyed to receive the letters the fourth had entrusted to him, but Jiraiya quashed it as he focused on the fact a group of S-class missing nins were interested in Naruto and his current safety came first. No, Jiraiya thought to himself, it was time for Naruto to receive the next parts of his legacy. It was that thought that lifted Jiraiya's mood, well that in the hefty amount of sake he was consuming. Once the whole betrothal business was over with, Jiraiya knew that the advisors and council would be coming after him to be the fifth Hokage. Instead of putting on the pointy hat and sitting at the desk full of paperwork, Jiraiya was going off to convince Suan to take up the post. At the same time he'd take Naruto with him. If Akatsuki really was after him, Naruto would need a solid offensive jutsu. So instead of just a good one, Jiraiya was going to teach Naruto his best one, the Rasengan. Hey! Jiraiya was already enjoying the on-look on Orochimaru's face when Naruto demonstrated that jutsu. What surprised Jiraiya, however, was when he felt another man slip into the seat beside him and asked quietly for a bottle of sake and held his head in his hands and moaned, "Kami, how could the bastards do that to Naruto? He's not even 13 yet." Eyes narrowing, Jiraiya took a moment to scan his new neighbor and quickly realized just who it was. Iruka, Naruto's teacher, and by Sarutobi's orders and Iruka's choice, the closest thing Naruto had to a guardian or family. With his heart lifting a little at the man's obvious distaste for what had been to Naruto, Jiraiya started to grin and looking up at the bartender called out, "Bring several bottles over here for me and my friend, all on my tab." Iruka glanced up and blinked in astonishment as he realized just who was sitting next to him. Jiraiya, one of the three legendary Sannin, not to mention the one who had trained Naruto for the third stage of the Chunin exam and author of the Ika Ika series. Why Jiraiya wanted to talk to him was quickly discovered as he poured Iruka a drink and with a cheer downed his own shot. Temari shifted slightly on the camel as she watched Gaara. Her brother, instead of riding a camel, was floating alongside on a pillar of sand. He wasn't sleeping, but for him the open desert seemed to bring relief. As if reading her thoughts, Gaara said simply, "My mind is calm here." Floating along for another minute, Gaara added in a quiet voice, "I caused you much trouble. You didn't choose your path, Gaara. Create your own now." Temari replied quietly, "Thank you, sister." Gaara replied in for him what was a happy voice, "I wish to protect you, brother, and perhaps others." "Good, you do that, Gaara." Temari replied as her voice started to crack. Here she was a kunoichi who wore a mask of a blood-loving, killer bitch because well she was one and it helped her from puking when Gara really got going. She was about to cry from the few simple words her youngest brother had said. Fortunately a party of bandits that had spotted the camel train decided to attack. Against the 3 Junin escorting her, Gara and Temari they didn't last a minute. Grumbling Temari was about to get back on her stinking camel when Gara lifted her onto his now expanded sand pillar. As the Junin escort raised their eyes Temari hugged her brother and started chatting away with Gara. It was a sight that had yet to be seen in Suna. Then their mouths dropped when she mussed Gara's hair. Hey Gara, remember our first mission together? We were sent against a pile of bandits. I killed my first man that day. That had been a rush. Temari chatted away with her brother under the night sky. Yes. Gara replied and his head to one side as he remembered something. I killed an archer aiming at you then. He did not even have a chance to scream. Thanks Gara. I didn't know that. Temari sighed happily. Then as the sand shifted bringing up a dung beetle she let out a curse as she swatted it away. Gara merely raised his eyebrow and said, would you like a scorpion instead? Temari paused for a moment as various thoughts flashed across her face. Then a smile crossed her face. Gara had just made a joke. Very funny Gara. Just don't turn into Kankuro, he isn't the best role model. Nodding Gara let a ghost of a smile cross his lips, I won't. We prepared a gift for you though, copies of the family scrolls. Pausing after Temari hugged him hard, Gara tried patting her back. A few tears soaked his shirt, but Gara didn't mind, tears didn't rouse Shukaku's bloodlust. It was in the comfortable silence that followed that both Temari and Gara used to reforge their bond as siblings as they floated across the sea of the desert. Sakura sighed in contentment. They were finally done cleaning the house. The former owner had been an old single chunin who had collected weapons from all over the world and not to mention a whole pile of knickknacks. What had been worse were the multiple meals left all over the place. Now the small house had been thoroughly cleaned, aired and all the minor things repaired. Naruto had proven surprisingly useful during the mission. He was very much used to cleaning and making minor repairs and would use his cage bunchins to help. Sasuke as well knew how to clean, but had spent much of his time going through the weapons. Kakashi's notes covered the fact that they were welcome to choose any weapons they wanted. Apparently the man's friends had taken away mementos already. After that all the useful weapons would be stockpiled and the rest judged for historical value. Sakura had replenished her basic weaponries and had taken a ceremonial knife that was decorated with cherry blossoms on the sheath. Sasuke had merely restocked and grabbed training weights. Naruto however had found an old but still in good shape sand battle fan. At Sasuke's questioning glance Naruto merely shrugged and replied, like I could afford a better present. That of course brought up the whole subject of Naruto and Temari getting married as part of the treaty. It wasn't that the three hadn't wanted to talk about it, the other two would always shift the topic. Not now however as Sakura decided to take the opening. So what are your thoughts on the whole situation Naruto? Sakura asked quietly. Stuffing a few kunai into his pouch Naruto had a look of intense concentration on his face. It's a mission we've both been assigned to do. So I'll perform it to the best of my ability as I'm sure Temari will. Glancing at Sasuke's smirk Naruto fired back, it's not like either of us was given a choice. They could have picked you or heck even sent Sakura to sand. I'll just make the best of it and continue improving. Besides it's not like either of us got made chunin. Wincing at that Sasuke answered, true Dobi. I mean why would she choose to get married to you? Like she'd want to marry a tem like you. Though that would have pissed off your fangirls. Naruto said with a sly grin across his face. Speaking of which since you could date all of them but don't, the guys are starting to wonder if they have to watch their backsides. Naruto dodged the hail of shuriken as Sasuke growled, "Dobi, that's low just 'cause I prefer more mature women." Wincing slightly, Sasuke realized what he just admitted: Naruto was going to bug him about this forever. In fact, Naruto grinned in delight and asked, "So like Nara Yoshino, or maybe the old granny near your house maybe? Even better, Kurenai Sensei heck she's hot enough to crush on. Or maybe Kiba's mom." Naruto rolled out names at fast pace. Naruto. Sakura screamed as she beat Naruto into the ground. It couldn't be true, it just couldn't. Sasuke couldn't like older women. Snarling a little, Sasuke glared hard at the Dobi and bit out, "Not Kiba's mother either." Dobi. Managing to strain himself upwards, Naruto got out, "Ooh, his sister." Sakura made Naruto eat dirt after that remark. Blushing slightly, Sasuke replied, "Whatever, Dobi. I'm going to start hauling these boxes away to be sorted." Sakura finally started to think about what had just happened. Hana. Inuzuka Hana. Gah, there's no way Sasuke should have a crush on Hana. Crap, how am I going to compete against that? Sakura thought. Ino was going to scream about this as well. A new rival had appeared. Naruto sighed as he dusted himself off. Limping slightly, he got a pile of clones to start hauling the boxes. "Hey Sakura-chan, get moving, we don't want to be all day at this," Naruto called out. Temari untied her sand forehead protector from around her neck and gave it Gaara. They were at the border and Three-Leaf Nins had just finished transferring all her goods to a cart and were waiting for her to say her goodbyes. Gaara calmly tied her forehead protector around his arm and said in a quiet voice, "So I always have part of you near." Then reaching into his gourd, Gaara pulled out a package and opened it to reveal a forehead protector with the kanji for beloved inscribed on it. "I had this made for you. To wear until you wed." Reaching up, Gaara tied it around Temari's neck in her usual spot for it. As Gaara moved to pull back, Temari leaned forward and gave her younger brother a hug and then a kiss on the forehead. "I love you, Gaara, and will miss you. Visit me, and keep our brother in line." Gaara could only nod, and then he strode purposefully to the Leaf Nin, killing intent coming off him in waves. "You will see that my sister comes to no harm. Fail and I will kill you." Frowning at the one-eyed and bored-looking Junin, Gaara thought for a moment and added in a much less intense tone, "Tell Uzumaki thank you." Spinning on his heels, Gaara strode back to the desert with a final nod to Temari. The Sand Junin quickly followed him, yet back a safe distance. "Ready?" Kakashi asked lazily as he made himself comfortable on her luggage in the cart. As Temari swung herself onto the cart, he motioned for her to take the reins. "Good, we can talk while you drive." Starting the team in motion, Temari asked the question at the top of her mind as the woman Chunin walked steadily in front, and the man in a long coat behind. "What's the escort plan?" Raising his one eyebrow in slight surprise, Kakashi asked, "Why do you want to know?" Keeping a straight face instead of a scowl at this test, Temari replied, "Simple, an attack that succeeds in killing or hurting me badly will void the treaty and likely set my brother off. Rock is a likely candidate, not to mention Sound or any of the other more ambitious villages. So obviously you have plan in place to safely return to Konoha. If I know the plan, I can assist, not being useless." Sounding satisfied, Kakashi answered, "Behind us is Aburame Shibi. He's got his colony of Kiki bugs searching constantly." He smirked at her unconscious shudder, an easy-to-exploit weakness he now knew, and continued on, "In front is Inuzuka Hana, with her senses and her partners there scouting ahead. I, on the other hand, will, if things look bad, will take you and move fast to Konoha. Otherwise you have the left, I have the right." Nodding at this, Temari shifted her fan to make it easier to attack to the left. "Nothing like being prepared." In a quiet tone, Temari asked, "So what's Uzumaki's Naruto's story?" Flipping a page, Kakashi answered, "Ah, your fiancé." "Really? Him?" Temari said in surprise. She hadn't heard whom she was to marry when she had left. Though he was younger than her, Temari recalled the intensity he had fought Gaara with, and his general cheerfulness. "Yes." Flipping a page, Kakashi said in a neutral tone, "Blonde, loves ramen, wants to be Hokage. Definitely our most surprising ninja. Frankly, outside of battle he's a little, well, dense. In battle or in training the boy can be a genius. He uses the basics to win. Oh, he'll try something impressive as a setup, but he wins most of the time with something simple. Favorite jutsu is Kage Bunshin, which he uses in a variety of ways. Very good at henges." Taking this in, Temari rephrased her question to get to what she wanted to know about the blonde enigma that she was supposed to marry. "I meant in the personal sense, not as a ninja." "Ah, well, considering you've been assigned to my team to start with, I went ahead with information you needed in that capacity." "Personally." Kakashi shrugged and said casually, "Orphaned in the Kyuubi's attack, he grew up alone. Started being a prankster at about the age of 6, graduated from the academy at 12. His best friend and rival is his teammate Uchiha Sasuke. Closest thing to family he has is Iruka, his last teacher at the academy. He's not particularly popular in town, especially among the older generations. He's making friends among his own though." Chewing over this for a while, Temari let the miles pass by. Kakashi slowly worked his way through his book as the time passed. As the day wore on, Temari decided that Kakashi was the best one to ask. Look what's up with his insane chakra levels and recovery. First going all out in his first fight, then producing 1,000 shadow clones, and topping it off by summoning that giant toad just isn't normal for a genin. Kakashi shrugged and answered, "Naruto will have to tell you himself. As for the toad, it's Gamabunta the boss frog." Jiraiya the frog hermit had Naruto sign his contract. He mentioned Gamabunta rather like Naruto. Taking that as all of an answer she was going to get, Temari moved on to another issue. "The rest of your team, if I'm going to be working with them, I should know something about them and your teaching style." Kakashi flipped a page and decided to answer Temari's question in reverse order. "I teach teamwork, tactics, and improving their basic skills. I don't usually teach jutsus. It's not my job except in specific cases. Besides, I believe the basics are the skills needed to do the job, anything else helps but is an extra." Flipping a page, Kakashi continued on, "As for the two others, Haruno Sakura is a kunoichi who has nearly perfect chakra skills but minimal endurance. Has a fair temper as well, good basic skills though, she has potential in genjutsu. Uchiha Sasuke is smart and aggressive with his fire jutsus, shuriken techniques, and good taijutsu. He's a touch bleak but very competitive." Shifting through her memories of the Chunin exam, Temari considered the information Kakashi had given her. With the exception of the pink-haired girl, it looked as if they had been making an assault squad. Sakura doesn't seem the best match for the team. Given Naruto and the Uchiha's abilities, they seem to be an assault squad. As I said, she has real potential for genjutsu. She was placed on the team to provide that and ranged support. Until she decides to pick up on her own training, Sakura won't be in a position to pass the Chunin exam." Kakashi said in a bored tone. "Do genin have access to village scrolls?" Temari asked. After her graduation as a genin, she had learned common genin techniques of the village. While nothing spectacular, they had provided the basis in training for more complicated jutsus. She of course had access to family scrolls for more complicated jutsus and secret knowledge. Of course, it's jutsus we use to recruit village-less nin, it's not exactly as if we hide them. I believe the current list is 2 fire jutsus, and a few genjutsus. Nothing spectacular but effective ones." Kakashi replied. Frowning, Temari asked, Why aren't you teaching them those jutsus? It was in their briefing materials as genin. One can lead an ox to water. Kakashi shrugged and got back to reading. Actually, now that he thought about Kakashi realized he had missed the meeting about the briefing materials. It wasn't like he was expecting any team to pass his test. He'd check up with Iruka about that. After all, he was sure Naruto would have learned the basic Kanten jutsus. The boy was jutsu mad after all. He had just assumed that Naruto avoided using them since Sasuke had mastered higher level Kanten jutsus. Still, it wasn't exactly a secret about those jutsus. Rolling her teal eyes, Temari shifted her attention back to the road. The miles plodded onwards as the ox team slogged onwards. Unfortunately for Temari, no bandits decided to show themselves so she could kill them. She considered killing the oxen at one point but reconsidered since as it would her hauling the cart. As they pulled into a roadside stop for the night, Temari saw the sign proclaiming a hot springs a short ways away. After putting the team away, Temari knew that she liked camels much better than oxen. Even with their gait and tendency to spit cut accurately, they were intelligent enough to look after themselves. Oxen were decidedly not. Traveling on foot at high speeds was much preferred, but impractical for hauling goods as she was now. She was hauling more with her than she originally thought to take. Gaara had organized a going-away party for her in a relatively short amount of time. He apparently had kept track of their father's supporters and spread the news. Having Gaara loom on one's doorstep had an effective response, and her fellow kunoichi friends had spread the news fast as well. As a result, a veritable showering of gifts had occurred. For some of the kunoichi, Temari knew it was out of relief for not being chosen. She would have felt the same if it had been another kunoichi instead. Securing a tarp over the goods, Temari headed into the lodgings. She was sharing a room with the woman, Hana, and Temari had noticed that she was partnered with 3 wolves of some kind. So it was upon entering the room that she was greeted by the 3 wolves growling at her. Stopping, Temari glared back for a moment before Hana turned around and snapped at them, "Boys, quiet down," and Hana turned back to sorting through her travel pack. As they whined a little, Hana just growled in a low, hard tone that got a yip from one of the animals. Raising an eyebrow, Temari tossed her travel bag by the foot of the other futon in the room. Pulling out her fan, Temari carefully laid it down beside the futon she had claimed for her own. Shifting through her memories of the Chunin exam, Temari recalled the opponent Naruto had fought in the prelims. He had a much smaller animal, but the same sort of facial tattoos as Hana. Before Temari could speak, Hana turned around and flashed her a fang-filled grin. "There's a nice bathhouse a short run away. I don't know about you, but traveling slow always makes me dusty." Letting a grin cross her own face, Temari realized that Hana wasn't going to be holding grudges over the recent attack, or at least not enough to deny a travel-worn woman a chance to freshen up. Not to mention I now smell of camel. A bath would be perfect." Temari replied happily. Rummaging through her travel bag, she pulled out a change of clothing, identical to her current wear but a rust-colored dress instead of light purple. "So that's what the smell was. I was trying to place it," Hana remarked with a wry grin on her face. Seeing Temari ready to go, Hana whistled and moved out into the hallway, followed by her companions. Waiting for the last of the 3 wolves to leave, Temari pulled out an average-sized tesson from her bag. While it wasn't as effective as her battle fan, the regular fan let her use jutsus, albeit at a much less powerful level, without being obvious that she had a weapon. Frankly, for her it was a backup weapon. It nonetheless would give her guards time to catch up with her in case of an attack. "Kakashi, I'm taking Temari to the baths as planned. The boys will be on the perimeter," Hana said as she poked her head into Kakashi's room. "Here I was all set to take that duty. Oh well, I guess I'll read instead," Kakashi replied in an easy manner. Pulling out of Kakashi's room, Hana rolled her eyes and motioned for Temari to follow her. An hour later, Temari was feeling much more human as she slipped into the hot springs beside Hana. Being clean was a wonderful restorative, even beating shredding a bandit into red mist. Hana herself looked relaxed as her unbound hair floated on the water. Temari's hair was only shoulder length when she let it down, but it was floating as she submerged herself neck deep. I'm guessing you didn't volunteer? Hana asked quietly. No, it was an assigned mission. Temari replied frankly. For kunoichi of high families, the realities of arranged marriages were a sword over their head. The saying went, your body is merely another tool. Expect it will be used one way or another. Then again, the average kunoichi, unless she married young, was expected to undertake courtesan missions. Their bodies were used one way or another. At least she wasn't sleeping with some old man as part of her mission. Instead, she had been bartered away as a political bargaining chip. Keeping her face still, Hana replied honestly, at least among the younger kunoichi, I'll spread the word. That way you won't have a totally frigid reception. All of us who possibly face the same situation will sympathize. The older ones likely won't. Keeping her face straight, Temari replied honestly, given that it's been slightly under 2 weeks since the battle, I'm not surprised. Shrugging her shoulders, Hana replied, among those that lost somebody, no, I wouldn't be. It's also the issue of whom you've been engaged to. The Uzumaki boy is very much. Hana paused to choose her words carefully, even though she didn't know the secret she and other children had been taught to keep clear of the boy, to fear and hate him. Kiba's lose to Naruto and his defeat of Neji had caused her to reconsider the boy. Has been the village pariah for most of his life. It's changing, but it's still there. Wincing a little at the news, Temari realized things weren't going to be easy at all in adjusting to her new life. Sure, everybody back in Suna avoided Gara like the plague, and her as well to some extent, but that was out of fear. Gara would randomly kill people depending on his mood. This was going to be worse, it seemed, but as she had said earlier, this was a mission. Why are people jealous of his abilities? Temari asked. Shaking her head, Hana answered, I don't think so. It's always been a mystery to me as to why he's been treated that way. Shibi might know, or Kakashi. Shivering at the bug user's name, Temari replied, no. I'll wait. Sharing one's body with bugs, ugh. With a single bark of laughter, Hana replied, so there is an upside to being married to Naruto. At least it isn't Shibi's son in your case. Putting on a steely face, Temari replied, I'd insist on someone else. I'm sure he's fine, but the whole bug thing just creeps me out. Oh, he's the methodical, intelligent type. Cute too once he takes off his jacket. I'm sure some girl will fall for him. Hana gossiped back. Raising an eyebrow, Temari asked, you know this how? He's on the same team as my little brother. My mother invited them over several times. Hana replied back. Uruka had to admit the house was more than suitable as a wedding gift. Located on one of the nicer outskirts of Konoha, the two-story house was on a large fenced lot with green space in the front and back. Trees surrounded it, created the illusion the house was isolated and peaceful. Interestingly enough, one of Naruto's new neighbors was Maeda Guy's family home. Though Guy had his own place, he still came by to see his parents, or as Naruto put it, Fuzzy Eyebrow Sr. and wife. Uruka and Naruto also discovered that yes, Guy really had inherited his behavior, as Guy Sr. worked out constantly in his yard as much as his one remaining arm allowed. Fortunately, Guy Sr. didn't wear the dreaded green outfit, much to Naruto's relief. Naruto's other neighbor was owned by the Fire Lord and used to house officials on a rotating basis. It was frankly the best Naruto and Temari could do, as it was unlikely that better neighbors could be found. The Maedas had quickly been won over by Guy's declaration of Naruto's passionate youth with cheers from both father and son. The officials were likely to ignore Naruto since they didn't stick around that long. Rolling his eyes, Iruka watched Naruto direct his bunchins as they moved his few belongings into his new house. Prominent among them was the old worn couch that Iruka knew was actually quite comfortable to sleep on the few times he had stayed at Naruto's. Oddly enough, after the couch it was one Bunshin's carrying a case in particular that received special care by the others. Not that Naruto would treat his ramen stock any other way. Moving into the empty but clean house, Iruka grinned as Naruto carefully ordered the placement of the couch with much grumbling from his Bunshins. The ramen was reverently being put away by one of the clones into a cupboard in the kitchen. The place was hollow with the utter lack of furniture. Not too much of a surprise, Naruto really hadn't had much of a chance to accumulate furniture. Dismissing most of the Bunshins, Naruto had a blank look upon his face as glanced around at his change in living conditions as if truly taking it in. Iruka-sensei, this is really happening, isn't it? The marriage. Temari. This house. Naruto said quietly as the blood drained from his face. Putting as much compassion and concern as possible, Iruka replied, yes. Yes, it is. Sighing a little, Naruto said in a very calm, quiet voice, I hope she likes it. Before Iruka could reply, the door opened and Sasuke called out, Hey Dobi, you here? We've got another mission. The blasted cat needs to be caught so it can get neutered. Naruto's face shifted gears as a smile passed his face. Hey Tem, I'll be ready in a minute. Finally, revenge against that blasted cat. Chuckling evilly, Naruto secured his ninja gear as his Bunshins tossed it to him. Iruka had heard all about Naruto's many retrieval missions of the cat. Whenever the Fire Lady visited Konoha, the cat tried to escape. Rumor had it she visited so often to shop, and not just for clothing either. Apparently she liked handpicking the shinobi chosen for public guard duty. Her tastes ran to trim young men with well-turned-out calves. Shaking his head clear, Iruka grabbed his own house-warming gift. Not knowing what Temari was able to bring, Iruka figured she'd at least need a bed. Naruto's Iruka knew would soon be too small for him as well. So he had purchased them each a bed and matching futon. To fit his budget, Iruka had gotten them from a popular assemble-it-yourself store. Opening the box in Naruto's room first, Iruka could only groan at the instructions written in the blocky letters of another language. Fortunately, it was his day off, so Iruka had lots of time to put the beds together. At worst, Iruka would make it work ninja style if he had to. He wouldn't be able to do much for the next month with the stack of C and B class missions ahead of him. He would though be back in time later this week to meet Temari if she arrived on schedule. Shaking his head, Iruka started considering his own love life, or lack of it. After the invasion and the missions he had to start taking again, Iruka realized that he was ready to settle down. Naruto was a taste of fatherhood and Iruka wanted more. Unfortunately, his problem was finding someone to settle down with. Maybe it was finally time to talk to Anko. When they had both been students, she had helped him pull off pranks with great humor. He had only rarely seen her true smiles ever since she had gotten back from Orochimaru. She was the closest thing he had to a sister, and one of the few women he could actually talk honestly and openly to. That, and she always got a laugh over his love life. She humored him, but said she would only help if was planning on getting serious. After all, she wanted to have nieces and nephews to spoil. Others had always wondered about the two of them, thinking they were getting together or destined to, but Iruka didn't care. Anko had simply been his first friend after the death of his parents. Her gap-toothed grin as she suggested a way to up a prank had gotten Iruka to smile honestly for the first time. Iruka first met her as he carefully prepared a prank on their taijutsu instructor by putting itching powder in his shoes. Anko at the same time was carefully soaking his weapons in glue. Iruka had found in his time at the academy a bratty little sister in Anko. Sure, she had more talent, but Iruka hadn't cared. It was the fact that he had someone who acknowledged him. Orochimaru had then taken Anko as his apprentice and proceeded to nearly destroy his bratty little sister. Iruka had helped her pick up the pieces of her life, being the first to acknowledge her as a friend right after the Snake Sanin's betrayal. Too skilled to be a Chunin yet not trusted to be a Junin, she had been stuck as a special Junin. The Chunin exam had been her first chance in years to show the village that they could trust her. Orochimaru had screwed that up again for her. It was definitely time to talk to Anko. After all, she would have advice for him and Naruto. Not to mention that he did owe her dango. Owing Anko dango wasn't a good idea. She was a lot like Naruto and his ramen. Temari was wearing a frown as she watched the gates of Konoha draw near. Fingering her forehead protector, Temari considered her future home seriously for the first time. Green, so green and lush compared to Suna, rich beyond measure in terms of water. So strange it was a mystery, much like the blonde enigma of her eventual husband. Fingering her battle fan, Temari felt the tension in her back as she waited for an attack. Nobody had attacked them during the trip and Temari was somewhat relieved. After all, if she was going to be assassinated, it would be by an elite Junin team. Given the protection Konoha had sent, anything else would be a waste of resources. Kakashi would kill anything less easily. Releasing her grip on the fan, Temari hopped down to present her paperwork to the gate guards. He stared coldly at her sand ID and then back at her. With a slow drawl, the Chunin said, "So you're the Kunoichi Suna's offering up on a platter." Giving her the once-over, the guard added, "Hataki, the council wants you to bring her to them immediately. The rest of your team can drop the things at the Brat's new place." At Kakashi's disappointed gaze, the guard merely shrugged his shoulders. Temari followed him with her travel bag slung over one shoulder, not wanting to keep too far away from her commander guard. Temari had reached a friendly professional relationship with Hana. Kunoichi had to stick together, and Temari was one of the few who actually were interested in frontline ninja work. Hana would see that her goods would be safe until Temari could collect them. Staying in Kakashi's shadow as she mulled things over, Temari realized that he had stopped in front of the Hokage's building. Brushing herself off, Temari motioned for Kakashi to lead on. Nodding, Kakashi led her up and into a secure council chamber. Giving a shrug of his shoulders, Kakashi said simply, "Yo." Feeling like she was being sized as a piece of meat, not even as a ninja, Temari had to fight to keep control of her emotions. As much as she wanted to say something to piss off the council, it would not be good. Remaining in at attention, Temari waited for the council to make the first move. A white-eyed stern man, the head of the Hyuga clan, Temari was sure, stood up and remarked, "Welcome to Konoha. I would remind you that you represent the peace between leaf and sand. Act according to your station." Temari wanted to shout at the asshole but settled for cursing mentally, "Stuck-up arrogant prick. You're not the one simply handed over like a scroll, torn from your family without a choice." Not that it showed, as Temari replied calmly, "Hi." Nodding calmly, Hiyashi continued on, "There will be a public engagement ceremony in 7 days' time when the treaty will be signed. A small fund will be allocated for you to properly prepare for the ceremony. Ah, my mistake for both you and your fiancé. You may go." Bowing, Temari left the council chamber, her eyes flashing in a violent temper. She had been treated in a cavalier manner and really wanted to kill something at the moment. Taking in Kakashi reading his perverted book, Temari wanted to yell at him. Scrunching up her nose, Temari turned a full-force glare on a scarred Chunin and snapped, "Yes, what do you want?" Flinching a little, Iruka wondered how to deal with this obviously pissed-off female. Grinning slightly, Iruka gave her a bow and answered, "Temari, I'm here to take you to your new house. I'm Iruka." Flashing through Temari's mind was Kakashi's remark that an Iruka was one of the closest things to family Naruto her fiancé. It was still odd thinking about that, had Pissing Iruka off was not on the list of things Temari should do. Better sense taking over. Temari replied confidently, Sabaka Temari. I understand you taught my future husband. Iruka mentally winced at the uncertain manner in which Temari spoke the last word. Not that he blamed her. At 15, marriage was a topic that he had never been seriously considered. Yet here she was being forced into one. Swallowing, Iruka nodded and answered, Yes, I was. Not that Naruto was a good student, mind you. Getting him to sit still was very difficult. That at least brought a quick smile as Temari replied, Kankuro was like that too. But as soon as Temari realized what she had said, a wave of sadness passed over her. She wasn't going to see her brothers again for a long time. Iruka paused a moment as he noticed the waves of emotion passing through her eyes. Discreetly turning away, he picked up her bag and said, I'll take you to your new house. It's actually very nice and the neighbors aren't bad at all. Retired shinobi on one side, rotating officials of the Fire Lord on the other. Walking quietly beside Iruka, Temari let her thoughts roll around for a few minutes before she decided to ask, as a person, what's he like? Determined. Very determined. Iruka said after a moment of hard thinking. He's tough, but he can be surprisingly fragile in some respects. Family being one of them, since he's never had one. Just don't hurt him, please. At Iruka's quiet, pleading tone, Temari replied in her own soft tone, I'll try not to. I owe him too much not to try. Pausing at this remark, Iruka looked at Temari, startled for a moment before she added in a soft voice, Don't ask why, I just do. Knowing he wasn't going to get more, Iruka walked on in silence with Temari until they approached her new house. Stacked outside were her goods as a crew of young genin were swiftly moving things inside. The hefty young man was moving the heaviest boxes while two kunoichi, a blonde and the weapon girl, were moving the lighter ones. Directing them in the orange blur was Shikamaru. Iruka sighed and called out, Naruto. Hustling over to Iruka, Naruto called out, Oh Iruka-sensei, do you know when? Taking in Temari, Naruto paused for a moment to take in the blonde kunoichi wearing a light purple battle dress. Scrunching his face up, Naruto concentrated as he tried to remember a script, Sabaka Temari, I welcome you to your new house. May your shutters be sturdy and water sweet. As soon as he finished, Naruto flashed a big grin. Grinning slightly at Naruto's fairly accurate traditional sand greeting of a bride or engaged woman to her new home, Temari replied in a warm tone, Uzumaki Naruto, I welcome you to my home. May your hearth be always lit and the larder well stocked. Somebody, likely Iruka, had drilled Naruto in this. Still, it was good to know that they cared enough to try and make things work. Grabbing her bag from Iruka and handing it over to Naruto, Temari said in a bossy tone, Right, show me the bedrooms as I need to freshen up before we start putting things away. With two younger brothers, even if one was bonded with a biju, Temari knew how to handle boys. A good portion of it was tone and posture. Entering her new home, Temari took things in quickly as she followed Naruto upstairs. The main floor wasn't too bad. Nothing like what she was used to though. Upstairs, Temari took in the several rooms done in traditional leaf style of sliding doors. Naruto, grinning, pointed things out quickly. The bathrooms in there. My room's that one. Those two rooms are empty, and this is your room. Bouncing on his feet, Naruto waited for Temari to open the door. Sliding her door open, Temari smiled as she noticed that she had the master bedroom, obvious from the size, in her own bathroom. Taking her bag, Temari tossed it by her futon and said in a firm but warm tone, Naruto, thank you for showing me to my room. I'll be downstairs in 20 minutes to help organize putting my things away. Yosh! Naruto cried out in a happy tone as he headed back downstairs. Tearing down the steps, Naruto was stopped by Ino's question, Well, what? Naruto fired back. Stamping her foot, Ino gestured around the house, Temari's goods and the whole situation. Sighing, Naruto replied in a normal tone, "It's an assigned mission. I don't have a choice, neither does she. Besides, why would I mind no longer living in a dump? That, and she's definitely good looking." Rolling her eyes, Ino snapped, "Yes, but she's a sand shinobi. Aren't you at all worried?" Rolling his eyes, Naruto fired back, "Of what? I beat her brother. Besides, she's going to be a leaf soon enough. Weren't you hung up on Sakura?" Ino replied with a sharp glare. Sighing and shuffling his feet for a moment, Naruto replied quietly, "She respects me and we're friends, but..." Ino rolled her eyes at this, knowing what the but was, humph, like I wasn't going to take care of that soon enough. Sasuke's mine. Rolling his eyes at that, Naruto fired back, "I doubt that. Besides, I was starting to figure out I wanted to be friends with Sakura first. Dating her would have been great, but that's not going to happen. Now that doesn't matter with this arranged marriage, so I'll make the best of it." Shrugging slightly, Ino sighed and said, "Fine. Be that way." Quote, "Hey, I will. Besides, not only is Temari strong, she's got great legs." Naruto said with a grin on his face as he replayed the memory of following her up the stairs again. Even if he hadn't wanted to get married, Naruto had learned and appreciated the female form enough to realize he had gotten pretty lucky. Yup. He wasn't being perverted since he was marrying Temari, right? Temari grinned as a scroll she found was being used to store bag upon bag of coffee beans. If there was one thing Temari knew she was going to miss, it was Suna coffee. Now she had plenty of her favorite drink. With quick bite of her thumb, Temari summoned a 5-kilo bag. Her grin spread as she noted the high-grade brand. Even though the Alishar clan was full of stone-cold killers, they knew their coffee and its devotees. Slipping the scroll into her dress, Temari grabbed the bag and Naruto to the kitchen. He had already pointed out his cupboard of ramen and its sacred place in his heart. Smiling like a cat that's just eaten the mouse, Temari picked out her own cupboard and put the coffee carefully in place. "Right, Naruto, you've got your ramen cupboard, now I have my coffee cupboard. No messing with each other's cupboard." With a serious look on his face, Naruto said, "You have my word on it. No messing with each other's important cupboard." Flashing him a warm grin, Temari extended her hand and shook on it. Even if it was several years before they got married and were ready for marital life, they had to live together. Establishing a few ground rules and personal spaces would make the transition easier. Now let's get back to finding what else we've got in there. That was when a loud thump was heard and Ino called out, "Damn it, Choiji, what? Ooh, that's, well, wow." Tenten was giggling and blushing at the sight of a package Ino was showing her. Raising an eyebrow, Temari asked, "What's so funny?" "Well, I'm hoping this is from a good friend, because it will otherwise raise a lot of questions." Ino replied with a cat-like grin on her face. Let me see." Naruto called out in impatience. "Oh, you will, Naruto. Just not now." Tenten replied with a sly grin on her face. Realizing which package Choiji had first peeked into, Temari felt a blush forming. Mir, one of her few civilian friends, was known for her taste and ability in designing lingerie, had obliviously given her something special. "Good friend, she designs them. So no, Naruto, you can't see it yet. Kakashi-sama." Kakashi paused at those words as he turned to take in the rather cute-looking lackey the council had sent to catch him before leaving. 150 centimeters, early 20s, brunette hair done in a pleasing cut, brown no tan eyes, slim build, and would have been a spitting image for Amma from Book 1 if it weren't for her nose. It was a shame, as her rather strong nose, instead of being cute as a button, prevented her from matching his favorite characters from the series. It was too bad, as other than Suon, Jiraiya seemed to either make his female characters up full cloth, or made them composites of women he knew. Frankly, Suon's stand-ins weren't that interesting to Kakashi, but hey, as long as it got Jiraiya to keep writing, Kakashi wasn't going to complain. Too bad it made fulfilling one of his fantasies so difficult, although he would settle for a beautiful woman in that dress from Book 1. Sama. Kakashi-sama, the Ama look-alike asked, looking slightly worried. Letting his blush fade, Kakashi gave her a grin and said, yes. The council has questions they wish to ask you. The Ama look-alike answered. Taking that as his cue, Kakashi nodded, pulled out his book and started to walk away. Who knew when they wanted to talk to him? Either way, he was getting to one of the best parts in the book. Flipping a page, Kakashi felt a blush started forming and a giggle left his lips as he read what Rin was saying to Karamu. Kakashi-sama, they wish to talk with you now. The Ama look-alike said in annoyed tone. Oh, Kakashi replied. Let's not keep them waiting then. Striding in, Kakashi took in the exasperated glares, bored stares and annoyed glances. With a simple shrug of his shoulder and a, yo, Kakashi played one of his favorite games, twitting the council's nose. What followed was drilling on Temari and what he gleaned from the trip with her. No, she wasn't a flight risk. She was only as likely to kill Naruto as any other woman who married him was. Yes, she seemed capable of handling Chunin duties. No, he hadn't noticed her dress size. Why should he care what her favorite food was? The Aburame elder had seemed disappointed to hear about her aversion to insects. Not to mention her utter lack of fear over marrying Naruto. Kakashi had grinned at the elder's line of questioning. He now had something to tease Kurenai about at the Junin sensei's meeting. Reading underneath it was pretty obvious her student Shino thought Temari was pretty good looking and he wouldn't have minded the arranged marriage. Taking the scroll with details about the public ceremony and the money from Hiashi, Kakashi held his sigh of relief in until he was out the door. Then it was out with his book. After all, he had gotten to a good part. Ignoring Hiashi's palpable hatred, Kakashi whistled lightly as he headed to his office. A hole in the wall, it served an important purpose for Kakashi by hiding paperwork he didn't want to deal with. Albeit neatly organized so when he had to deal with it he could find it. Thumbing through the stacks on Team 7, Kakashi finally found the one about the briefing materials for New Genin. Unfortunately for Kakashi, the meeting he had missed was to collect the essential briefing material for his team. Then again, it wasn't like he had passed any other teams previously and hadn't expected to pass Team 7. He could predict their reactions now if showed up with those dated scrolls. Of course, he could prepare individual scrolls with the jutsus plus a few others on them along with a few suggested training hints and study suggestions. That would pass Master, and he could throw Sakura off by mentioning that he wanted the team to focus on teamwork before going to individual study. Actually, he could have fun with this. Naruto was going to be shocked by the sheer number of theory scrolls Kakashi was going to assign him to read. An evil grin on his face, Kakashi started writing out the individual training regimes he wanted to impose on them. He'd test Temari extensively before he'd write up a scroll for her too. This teaching stuff really wasn't too hard. Iruka had been exaggerating its difficulty. One just had to think of it as a torture exercise by attacking the student's weaknesses. Sasuke was going to go into shock at the suggestion to train in seduction and intelligence gathering techniques. An evil giggle passed Kakashi's lips. This was downright fun. Oh, how he was going to enjoy tomorrow. Temari grimaced as she poked through the cupboards and the refrigerator. Apart from the milk, the only other food than ramen was a generic breakfast cereal and a half loaf of bread. She would have to go shopping later. Stocking up on the basics would up a fair bit of her available cash. That's when the thought struck her. She was supposed to be getting engaged and then married to Naruto. Nothing like getting him used to the idea of who held the purse strings. Sipping away at her coffee while she waited for her toast to finish, Temari watched Naruto munch mechanically through his breakfast cereal, some sort of brown flaky material that looked like sawdust. The panda cap, she had to admit, was kind of cute. Smiling slightly, Temari, who had gotten showered and dressed before coming downstairs, got ready to dig her claws into Naruto. If she could get the old insane Gaara to decently follow her will, at least on household issues, Naruto shouldn't be any trouble. After he finished draining a glass of milk, Temari spoke up in a sweet tone, "We need to buy groceries, Naruto. So I'll need you to get your wallet." Yawning heavily, the still half-asleep Naruto looked at Temari for a moment with hooded eyes, then replied, "I'll bring down Gama-chan." Smacking his lips, Naruto moved at a half-speed out of the kitchen and upstairs. Temari let a grin cross her face. This was going well. Naruto obviously responded to orders well in the morning. Idly speculating about the future, Temari felt some of her tension leaving. Naruto was nothing but a young teenager at this point, cheerful and hyperactive. He wasn't actively hostile or trying to dominate her like a lot of men did to women. Her situation could be worse, Temari knew, with the lack of clan elders to pressure and control either of them. Then again, no clan meant no backup, and it wasn't as if Gaara was around. Dragging himself downstairs, Naruto handed Temari a very full frog wallet before heading back upstairs. Opening it up and counting the money, Temari was shocked. Either he was saving up for something expensive or Naruto was saving nearly all of what he earned. Running through a mental list of what she wanted to buy, Temari did a rough guess as to how much it would cost and counted out the money. Closing the still full frog, Temari reacted instantly when she felt the air move. Flicking a kunai into her hands, Temari rolled off her chair and found Kakashi drinking a mug of her coffee while reading his perverted book. Reacting instantly, Temari launched the kunai at the book. Leaning away so it missed, Kakashi paused for a moment and said in a bland tone, "Morning." After a growl, Temari said in an icy voice, "No porn in the house." Sighing, Kakashi put his book away in his jacket. Women were so picky about his books, it wasn't as if he was peeping on them like Jiraiya did. Taking another sip of the coffee, Kakashi in a calm tone added, "Good coffee. I'll have to remember to come by in the mornings for a cup." As Temari gave him an icy glare, he sighed. Most people just didn't understand him. Pulling out the scroll, Kakashi passed it to Temari and the money pouch. The scroll contains the details for the ceremony in 6 days. The money is to cover expenses to prepare for it. Oh, and you have the rest of the day to finish unpacking. Tell Naruto to come to our meeting spot at the usual time today. He can take you there tomorrow. As Kakashi vanished, leaving behind an empty mug, Temari blinked and unrolled the scroll. She might as well read it and get ready. As she cracked the scroll, Temari felt her mood turn sour. This engagement treaty signing was an exercise in humiliation for her in the sand. The council wanted her to down bow before everybody Konoha and publicly submit herself to Naruto, to vow to bring forth as many children as possible for the Leaf. The ignominy, the sheer groveling, weak-minded words the Leaf Council wanted her to spout. Even worse were the words Naruto was to speak to her. Rage started building in Temari. She was a proud kunoichi of the sand, one who killed without mercy in battle and with one assassination under her belt. The hell, she was going to spout this crap. Grabbing her fan, Temari stalked out to the backyard. A practice ring had been set up inside it, and several logs were set up as targets. Snapping open her fan, Temari built up her chakra and unleashed a blast of slicing air, slamming it into one of the logs and turning it into shreds. With the momentum of her first move, Temari twirled her fan about her and unleashed a miniature tornado that captured the wooden shards of her first target. Slamming her closed fan into the ground, Temari used her chakra to maneuver her jutsu to up another log. Her fan aided her in creating fiercely concentrated blasts of wind, but Temari hadn't been Baki's student for nothing. Running through a series of hand seals, Temari shouted out, Fuden, Torasum no Jutsu. Shoving a large amount of chakra into the jutsu, the tornado grew more fierce as tiger shapes suddenly appeared in a chain on the outside of the tornado. The sounds of wood being shredded by the jutsu provided an interesting counterpoint to the birds chirping nearby. Still not satisfied, Temari ran through another series of hand seals before calling out, Fuden, Beizu Kei's no Jutsu. The result was impressive as the tornado split apart into 5 and swept up the remaining logs into deadly winds. Few things would survive inside the maelstrom Temari created. She was using a combination of Chunin and Junin level jutsus that was deadly. Keeping the jutsus up for over a minute as Temari let her rage power her jutsus. As the fierce winds sent a backlash of wind pouring outward and sending leaves flying, Temari felt the wind flow over her. Caught up in her element and emotions, Temari didn't realize she had pushed beyond her chakra limits until she felt her knees crumble as soon as her jutsus disappeared. Slipping downwards to the ground, Temari only had time to let out a single word, Kuso. Naruto had seen the fierce winds from the bathroom as he brushed his teeth. Drawn like a moth to a flame to check out the jutsus, not to mention the moment of panic Naruto felt that Temari was under attack, got him moving. With his toothbrush still in his mouth, Naruto tore down the stairs and outside. By the time Naruto got to the backyard, he realized it was Temari simply practicing. Naruto's jaw dropped and his toothbrush fell to the ground as he stared in awe at Temari. The kunoichi cut an impressive figure as her blonde hair flowed freely in the wind, and her eyes stared ahead in a determined gaze. As his heart beat in his chest, Naruto came to 2 conclusions about Temari. She was an awesome ninja, and she was one of the most beautiful women in the world. The fact that she was going to marry him was just icing on the cake. Sakura suddenly had dropped to number 2 on his list of favorite kunoichi. After years of frustration on his part, it couldn't be that much of a surprise. Even after saving her life lots of time, all Naruto had gotten was respect from Sakura. In fact, Naruto had been starting to come to the conclusion that what he really wanted was to be friends with her. That feeling solidified when Naruto saw Temari turn pale and collapse to the ground. Temari-chan. Naruto called out in shock as he ran to her. Kneeling down, Naruto quickly checked her pulse and other vital signs. Kakashi, for all his faults as a teacher, had ensured Team 7 was up on field first aid. That had actually been about one of few things Kakashi had actually taught them. So Naruto was able to diagnose chakra exhaustion as the cause of Temari's collapse. However, given her stable heart rate, it wasn't a deadly case. Acting quickly, Naruto created a set of cage bunchins and nodded as they leapt into action following his plan. 2 split off to go find Iruka-sensei. One went to tell the Tem and Sakura-chan that Naruto was dealing with something. One went inside to get the kettle going and make ramen, one of the good ones. Another grabbed Temari's fan and opened the doors. Nodding to the last bunchin, Naruto lifted Temari up in a 2-man lift, and slowly moved her into the house and up into her room. After carefully placing Temari on her futon, Naruto motioned for the bunchin to remove her sandals. Slipping her beneath the covers, Naruto brushed his hand over Temari's forehead. Her skin was slightly rough from the sun and sand, but still in good shape. Her heart-shaped face was softened by unconsciousness into an almost sweet look, far different from the controlled, confident face she wore awake. Taking a seat on the floor, Naruto simply sat for a few minutes before a clone brought up a bowl of ramen still steaming away on a tray. Putting it down, the bunchin nodded and said, "I found this scroll on the table as well downstairs," before it released the jutsu puffing out of existence. That was when Naruto suddenly knew that Iruka was on his way over, having been found by the clone at Iruka's favorite training ground. Grunting, Naruto was struck by the realization that he knew what his cage bunchins did after releasing themselves. He was going to have to talk to Kakashi-sensei about this. Before he got around to that, however, Naruto realized that Temari had grown slightly and was starting to come around. As a wave of pain passed through her head, Temari groaned slightly as she came back to consciousness. She had drained her chakra before on occasion, so Temari recognized her symptoms. Her senses hurting, the pins and needles throughout her body, the soft bed. Pausing her mental inventory, Temari considered the soft bed, the scent of miso soup in the air, and the sound of someone humming. Turning her head, Temari blinked as an orange blob came into focus as Naruto. Seeing her blink, Naruto said softly, "You burned off all your chakra. So I brought you up to your room." Rocking on his heels, Naruto continued on, "I also made you some ramen. You should have some of the broth first, it will help you out." Nodding, Temari tried to shift herself upright, but that task proved beyond her current strength. Frowning, Naruto ran out of her room and into his own. Moments later, Naruto brought out his pillow and futon roll. "Can I help get you upright?" Naruto asked quietly. Unsticking her tongue from the roof of her mouth, Temari whispered, "Thanks." Flashing her a warm grin, Naruto moved in and lifted Temari up and slipped his futon and pillow behind her. Now at least somewhat upright, Temari grinned slightly as Naruto placed the tray on her lap. Trying to lift her arm, Temari frowned as her hand shook, but it wasn't bad enough to spill the broth from the spoon. Taking a few spoons of broth, Temari felt better for it. Slurping up the noodles, Temari slowly worked her way through the bowl and finished off the broth. Still lightheaded and drained, Temari was finally able to think. "Thank you, Naruto," Temari said softly. Grinning, Naruto rubbed the back of his head and said in a cheerful mood, "You're welcome. Chakra exhaustion isn't a good thing, is it?" Taking the tray, Naruto put it carefully away on the floor and shifted slightly. "Your jutsus were amazing." "You were amazing too, Temari-chan." Blinking, Temari stared into Naruto's bright blue eyes filled with emotions that just drew her in. The admiration, concern, and Temari was sure just a touch of lust. Not that she minded, after all, Temari knew she was marrying him, it was good to know he was interested in her. With a slight smile on her face, Temari said quietly, "Come close so I can thank you properly, Naruto." Scooting in closer, Naruto moved in close to Temari. Leaning in, Temari kissed Naruto lightly on the cheek, and she smiled slightly as she felt the blood rush to his cheek, and followed it up with another one on his lips. Naruto's lips tasted like salt, mint, and the coppery tang of blood, the last Temari found most exciting. In turn, Temari tasted of coffee and cinnamon. Pulling back, Temari watched Naruto sit there absolutely frozen in shock. That, Temari was sure, was his first kiss by a woman given his reaction. Even for a fairly chaste kiss, it was nice to know he had liked it. Letting out a happy sigh, Naruto turned to look into Temari's eyes, and in a heart-breaking moment Temari realized just how fragile this boy, her future husband, could be. Yet his very fragility was his strength. To those he cared about, Naruto would give his entire heart. For his friends, for his precious people, Naruto would go to his limits and beyond. In turn, those precious to him could shatter his heart in an instant. Temari realized that she was now one of them. Taking his hand in hers, Temari said quietly, "I wasn't happy to be married off as part of a treaty, but I am glad it was to you, Naruto." Sighing again, Naruto blinked and his happy mood returned. "We're both a little young for this, no. Though I am happy it's you instead of someone else." Suddenly a grin passed across his face and Naruto added, "At least it wasn't your doll-using brother. Now that would have been weird." Letting out a short laugh, Temari's eyes twinkled at the thought of Kankuro being mistaken for a girl. After all, he did play with dolls. Sneezing, Kankuro had to curse as he looked at the damage done by the sneeze. His newest acquisition, a third Cage Special Edition action figure, was no longer in mint condition. The plastic window of the box was now streak-marked. Sighing, Kankuro carefully placed the now near mint figure onto his near mint shelf. Feeling irritated, Kankuro turned to his comfort. Barbie was going to mix and match her fashion items in front of Ken, and after all she had a big mission coming up and wanted to look good. As Gara viewed his brother via the third eye jutsu, he wondered if he was the saner of the two brothers. After all, now he wanted to be social and kunoichi were starting to be interesting to look at. Somehow playing with dolls and dressing them up in different outfits was just weird. Sure, he had been a bloodthirsty monster lost in his loneliness until Naruto knocked him out of it, and Gara knew he wasn't sane, but then again few nin were. Releasing his jutsu, Gara decided that he needed to give his bear a hug. Then he was going to find Baki and train with his new teammate. He only hoped this one was going to last longer. The previous three had resigned after just one session. After all, the desert wedgie wasn't as bad as the 1000 years of pain technique. Plus he wasn't using the explosive tag version. The few scrolls on humor he had read did show that physical humor was the easiest to learn, and Gara was starting to figure it out. It was into the laughter that followed Naruto's statement that Iruka walked in on with a concerned look upon his face. "What's the matter, Naruto?" It was then that Iruka noticed the two holding hands, Temari's pale face contrasting with Naruto's slightly flushed one. Doing a double take at the sight, Iruka felt some of the stress he had been feeling since this whole engagement business had occurred leave him. The two were forming a bond spurred on no doubt by the realities laid on them, but also by the openness of Naruto's heart. "Temari-chan has a case of chakra depletion," Naruto said in a concerned tone. She was using some powerful wind jutsus to completely shred the target logs. Grimacing a little, Temari noticed the scroll that set her off to one side. Kakashi-san dropped off a scroll with the details of the public engagement ceremony. "I wasn't particularly pleased at the lines I was given." Catching Temari's tone, Iruka picked up the scroll and scanned through it until he came across the section that set Temari off. They had pulled out the really tradition wording, and given Temari's reaction, she was pissed. For a kunoichi, who given her abilities was more comfortable on the battlefield than in the tea room, it would be humiliating. Groaning a little, Iruka read Naruto's lines. "Kami, they wanted Naruto to say he would make all her decisions for her. I'll look into this. Frankly, I don't blame you. I wouldn't say this out loud either. Beyond that, how are you two doing?" Iruka asked in a calm tone. Naruto didn't even bother to answer as he focused totally on Temari, his eyes soaking her in. "Drained with a full list of things to finish off today. I was going to buy the basics for the kitchen, then finish unpacking," Temari admitted after a minute resting. Fortunately, the academy was closed since almost all the teachers were on missions. Iruka had the week clear though, having his latest mission cancelled. "Fortunately, I'm free today, so I'll help. Actually, if you come up with a grocery list, I can clear that out of the way while you rest." Nodding, Temari pulled out the money she had grabbed earlier from her dress and laid it on the futon. "I'll write it out, but I was going to buy a stock of basic goods." Nodding, Iruka pulled out a scroll and a pen, then said, "Right, Naruto, let's give Temari a couple of minutes, we'll go clean up the backyard." Nodding, Naruto slowly stood and removed his hands from Temari after he gave it a squeeze. Moving with reluctance out of Temari's room, Naruto gave her a concerned look before shutting the door. As he led Iruka outside, Naruto remained quiet until they reached the backyard. Iruka, with a slight smile on his face, asked, "Naruto, you're starting to like Temari, aren't you?" A deep sigh was Naruto's only response. "Ah, so have you kissed yet?" Iruka asked in an interested tone. The bright blush Naruto wore was confirmation enough for Iruka. Iruka could only grin. 2 days in and he was already getting a kiss. Teenage hormones were speeding things along for the pair. It was that thought which shook him. Teenage hormones, and early marriage, Okami. Naruto was going to need the talk. He just wasn't ready to be a parent or a husband yet, and there was going to be plenty of pressure on the two to have children early. Wincing, Iruka ran over in his mind just when to take Naruto aside and talk about a subject on which his experience was admittedly limited. Too bad Kakashi couldn't give him the talk. Wait a moment, Iruka thought. It was a duty of Junin senseis to go over that. Not to mention ensuring Kunoichi attended rape prevention and recovery classes. That subject always haunted his thoughts whenever a Kunoichi graduated. It was one of the more common dangers they ran into if captured or undercover. Ah hell, he'd have a word with Kurenai about that subject for Temari as well. He didn't know what Sans procedures were, but he was sure it wouldn't hurt to introduce Temari to Leaf's contraceptive regime. Why was he the one stuck thinking of these issues? Oh yes, he was the only sane, rational and organized ninja in Konoha who cared about Naruto. Kakashi, may he be cursed with the Konohamaru squad as his next genin team, was in Iruka's opinion a lazy, disorganized pervert who shouldn't be led anywhere near a genin squad. Iruka-sensei, it looks like we'll need to replace the logs. There's nothing but sawdust. Naruto called out, interrupting Iruka's thoughts. Staring at the pile of sawdust, Iruka winced. What had been several stout pillars of hardwood had been shredded. With a low whistle, Iruka ran his hand through the pile. Naruto, remember to never get Temari mad at you. Wind elemental techniques are deadly. Wind element techniques? Naruto asked, slightly confused. Why are they deadly? Falling naturally into his teaching mode, Iruka began speaking as he looked directly at Naruto. There's 5 elements that form the basis of everything in the world: fire, earth, water, wind, and lightning. The 5 great nations and hidden villages match to these elements. Right, like Temari came from Suno, which is in Wind Nation, to Konoha, which is in the Fire Nation. Naruto responded, nodding his head. Right, out of the 5 elements, wind is considered the war element. Iruka got out before Naruto interrupted. But what about fire or lightning elements? Fire can burn really bad. Naruto asked as his face scrunched in concentration. All the elements are powerful, Naruto. The reason why wind is called the war element is that its attacks are deadly, but it also provides a strong defense by diverting attacks. It's balanced but also highly noticeable. Water, on the other hand, is known as the assassination element. Iruka said, pausing for a moment before continuing on. Since Temari focuses on wind attacks, it's most likely her primary element. Primary element? Naruto asked, slightly confused. Everyone is aligned to a particular element, Naruto. Whenever they use ninjutsus of that element, it's easier to control and is stronger. Take for instance Sasuke. His primary element is fire, so whenever he uses fire attacks, they are stronger and easier to control than other elemental attacks he knows. Iruka continued lecturing. How do you know he's a fire element? Naruto asked in a confused tone. He's an Uchiha. They always been strong fire users. Iruka continued on in a somewhat stern tone. Plus he didn't skip class the day we tested for elements. Oops. Naruto said in a chagrined tone. So how do you learn what element you are? Pulling out a thin sheet of paper from his pocket, Iruka handed it to Naruto, who grasped it as he looked at it uncertainly. Simply channel chakra into the paper and it will show you which element you are. Lifting up a piece of paper in his hand, Iruka demonstrated as the slip quickly became soaked. I'm a primary water element. So my ninjutsus are easier and stronger to use than my other elemental attacks. Nodding, Naruto channeled his own chakra into the paper, which ripped in 2. Hey, that's interesting, you're a wind element. Seems you and Temari match up. Iruka said with a grin. Very few leaf nins were primary wind elementals. In fact, the only one he knew of was Asuma. Hey, cool. I've so got to tell Temari. Naruto declared happily as he jumped into the air. First, however, let's grab a fresh practice log first and set it up. Iruka said, shaking his head. Yosh. Naruto called out as he ran into the back of the yard where a large pile of uncut wood was stuck. 30 minutes later, the two had a hefty pillar set up and in the ground. Racing up to the bridge, Naruto called out, "Oh Sakura-chan, Sasuke, am I late?" That was when Kakashi appeared behind Naruto and ruffled his hair. "You're late, Naruto." With a mischief look in his eye and a smirk on his face, Kakashi asked, "So what's the reason?" With a concerned look on his face, Naruto answered, "Temari-chan was pissed at what they want her to say at the ceremony and took it out on the target posts by shredding them with her best jutsus and overdid it. I had to treat her for chakra exhaustion." Then with a smile on his face, Naruto added in a proud tone, "They were completely reduced to sawdust. It was awesome. Oh, and I'm wind element like Temari-chan. At least Naruto has a good reason, Kakashi-sensei, and he did send a bunchin ahead to tell us he was running late." Sakura spoke up, "Unlike some people. That in your bunchin proved useful as a target dobi." Sasuke added, Temari-chan already you move fast, Naruto. I'll accept your tardiness this once." Kakashi grinned innocently behind his mask. "Ha, like you're ever on time, sensei." Inner Sakura grumbled. "HN. Was Sasuke's contribution. Thanks, sensei." Naruto said in relief. "Oh yes, that reminds me. Having worked on teamwork before the Chunin exam, I've prepared a course of individual study for all three of you. I expect you to work on this outside of the time we work as a team. I'll follow up weekly on your progress," Kakashi said in a rather pleased tone as he tossed each of them a scroll. As each of his students unrolled their own, it was Sasuke who reacted first to Kakashi's delight. "Seduction training," Sasuke snarled in an icy hiss. Amused by Sakura's blush, Kakashi answered in a cheerful tone, "A fundamental course any ninja should have, especially Hunter Nin. It's much easier to gather information from friendly sources." Putting the pieces together, Sasuke gave a grunt. Though it wouldn't make him stronger, it would help him find his brother. It wasn't as if that man would just turn up in Konoha so Sasuke could kill him when he was ready. Sakura, having gotten over her mental image of joining Sasuke in seduction training, groaned as she read her scroll, "This is lethal." "Nope. I simply asked Guy for a training regime that was the most efficient way to build stamina. Besides, I turned down his offer to give you one of his training outfits." Kakashi's grin couldn't get any wider at the moment. "Unless you'd like one, of course. Remember the Chunin motto." Shuddering at the thought of wearing one of the Green Beast's outfits, Sakura murmured, "Run in the fields." This would make her stronger. Maybe with this she wouldn't be left behind anymore. Naruto, much to Kakashi's surprise, wasn't howling in outrage over his scroll. Kakashi-sensei, I've got a question for you. When I used my Kage Bunshin this morning to find Iruka-sensei, I remembered what happened with it when it released the jutsu. Why was that?" Impressed by this, Kakashi thought for a moment about Naruto's signature jutsu. Then it struck him. Naruto obviously hadn't bothered to learn the theory behind Kage Bunshin, just the technique. Provided the clone isn't destroyed, you learn everything it knows when you or it releases the jutsu. This makes Kage Bunshin useful for spying, but you don't get the chakra you spent making it back. You'd get the clone's experience for chakra control, molding and alteration exercises as well. Yosh! Naruto shouted as he leapt in the air, "I'm learning all sorts of things today." Shaking his head at Naruto's antics, Kakashi realized Naruto had discovered a perfect way to tackle all the scrolls he had assigned. He just hoped Naruto wouldn't overdo it, and fry his head from information overload. Since Kakashi couldn't be bothered to do much today, he decided to have them practice chakra alteration. "Right, I want you three to practice chakra alteration today. Don't overdo it today since we have a quick mission lined up for tomorrow," Kakashi said as he ran them through the basics of their individual elements. Sakura was trying to ignite a leaf while Naruto was trying to cut one. Before he left, Kakashi blinked as he saw Naruto create a horde of clones to practice the technique. Sasuke just glared at Naruto before demonstrating his skill at altering his chakra by igniting his leaf in his right hand then into lightning with his left, results of Kakashi's instruction in the Chidori. Ah, the joys of youth, Kakashi thought to himself as he headed out to check on Temari. What had he been doing at 13? Ah yes, leading raids on cloud lines. That had been a good war, quick, well planned and led on the Leaf side against an enemy that was having a civil war in its command. Iruka noticed Kakashi land in the backyard and poke around in the pile of sawdust centered on the practice ring. Opening the kitchen window, Iruka called out, "Kakashi, you might as well come in." Kakashi nodded and smoothly moved inside, joining Iruka in the kitchen. Now where does she store the coffee? Kakashi asked in a questioning tone. The coffee this morning really had been first rate. Iruka, however, merely snorted. Since I don't feel like dying, I'm not telling. Naruto informed me they made a deal. He doesn't touch her coffee cupboard, she doesn't touch his ramen cupboard. Waving Temari's coffee addiction and her protective streak over it aside, Kakashi suggested in an innocent tone, I was merely thinking of brewing a pot for her. If I get a cup out of it, that's pure luck. Right. Iruka said in a dubious tone. Besides, you're too late, she had lunch a half hour ago and is asleep again. As he spoke, Iruka moved quickly, putting away cleaned pots and pans into various drawers and cupboards. She'll be fine by tomorrow though, I'm sure. Naruto got to her right away. He's falling for her pretty fast. Kakashi said in a mildly interested tone. Yes, that's a problem in and of itself. Iruka sighed as he finished putting away the last of the dishes. They're both being publicly made into a couple and will be under pressure to at least have one child fairly quickly. While I won't speak for Temari, I do know Naruto has limited knowledge of what actually involves and all the consequences entailed. He did invent the Waroke no Jutsu. Kakashi said with a slight smirk. I won't deny that Naruto's interested in the opposite, he just found a fairly typical male weakness and exploited it. Apart from getting attention, he developed it to use against perverts. The third mentioned to me once that was how Naruto managed to get his hand on the Forbidden Scroll. Iruka rebutted in a calm tone. He certainly is surprising, though that jutsu has sent the prudes like Hiashi screaming. I heard Kurenai was torn between wanting to tear a strip off him for degrading women or getting jealous that Naruto had come up with a brilliantly effective genjutsu. Kakashi chuckled for a moment after his last comment. Right, but he's still going to need the full talk on, and that job is one done by Junin senseis. Iruka said with a shark-like grin. Somehow I doubt Temari will appreciate it if I give him the traditional version handed done to me. Taking the team down to a port town, liquoring them up and hiring them a geisha each. Though it would interesting to figure out which team Sasuke bats for finally. Kakashi finished with an evil grin. He just prefers his women older. Iruka said with a smile on his face as he shared Naruto's information, about 6 or so years older. Hey, good to know. Kakashi said as he scratched his chin. I'll give all 3 of them the talk. I'm finally starting to get a hand on this teaching business. I just torture them via their weaknesses as ninja. I've got Naruto reading large numbers of scrolls on a wide range of subjects. Watching them squirm in embarrassment will be fun. Though what isn't fun is the crap they want Naruto and Temari to spout off at the engagement ceremony. I looked it up and someone decided to pull out a 200-year-old version for marriage treaties between clans. The last series of marriage treaties in Konoha had a radically different tone for the engagement or marriage ceremonies. I've copied out several versions for reference. Iruka stated vehemently. I didn't read the scroll itself, mind if I look at it? Kakashi said in a mild tone. Pulling the scroll from his vest, Iruka tossed it to him. Kakashi caught it easily and unfurled it. Quickly scanning it over, Kakashi replied dryly, "Yes, I can see why Temari decided to burn out her chakra this morning. I haven't read anything this outdated since the Ika Ika historical issue. Given her weapon of choice and abilities, she's continuing on in the tradition of wind battle maidens, it really isn't appropriate. The historical accounts of that order definitely placed them against the norm of their time." Iruka paused a moment as a thought struck him. I glanced over a couple of scrolls of marriage treaties with the order from deceased clans. Now they had some really different language. You do say. Kakashi in an interested tone, find them again, would you? What Naruto's and Temari actually say to each other won't affect the treaty provided they agree to eventually marry each other as per orders. Besides, he does have a reputation as the most surprising ninja to keep up. Nodding, Iruka moved into the living room to sort through the piles of scrolls and boxes, a good portion of which seemed to be random gifts. Not that Iruka was too surprised. The treaty had been negotiated quickly and he had figured out most kunoichi would pile gifts on the unfortunate one chosen out of relief that it hadn't been them. Kakashi, at the sight of more work to be done, grinned and waved goodbye to Iruka as he left, leaping out the window and into the trees. Neji watched Hinata run through another endless series of hand strikes against the training post. After his lose to Naruto, Neji had put aside his fatalism and his willingness to view the Hyugas strictly in terms of branch and main families. Surprisingly, Neji realized that Hinata actually cared for him personally, not just because he was a cousin but for who he was an individual. It was strange to think about, but Neji realized that Hinata naturally liked people and was genuinely friendly with almost all she met. Even more interesting for Neji was that he realized just why Hinata would fail miserably when sparring against Hiashi, or Hanabi. She literally could not hurt those she loved. Her willingness to change herself was good, but Neji doubted she could ever kill her heart. The best she could ever hope to be was a lioness fiercely protecting her cubs, not a ruthless hunter. Against himself, however, Neji would not allow such a weakness. No, not when he was here to train her. However, that was not his primary concern right now. He needed Hinata to get over her crush on Naruto and focus on her training. A task in which Neji knew he was lacking any experience or competence. Though he was 14, Neji hadn't bothered thinking about or even feeling much about love or even lust. He was focused utterly on his own development, pursuing it with a ruthless determination. It was the one reason Lee would never beat him. Neji trained equally as hard. The emotions of a 13-year-old girl were completely outside of his experience, as Tenten, like Lee, was utterly focused on improving her own skills. Hinata, stop, Neji said in his blunt tone. Finishing off one last series of strikes, Hinata turned to face Neji and asked, "Yes, Neji-Nisan. We are finished for now. However, I must talk with you about an issue disrupting your focus. Naruto and Temari's marriage," Neji said in a calm tone without hint of emotion. The flash in Hinata's eye and shift in posture told Neji everything he needed to know. She had feelings for Naruto and Hinata was capable of hating another. "We will talk over Dango. I know a place on our way to the meeting." Dango, Neji thought with some irony, was a rather common treat the two Hyugas both enjoyed, a treat more uptight Hyugas would view as below them. So it was in a somewhat cold silence the pair made their way to the Dango shop. After devouring their first sticks, Neji began the conversation. "I can see the qualities in Naruto that would make him romantically interesting for you. Indeed, if things were not as they are, I would help things along, if only to help you. That and I would have enjoyed the chance to send certain members of the main family into shock. Certain main family members would have gone into hysterics at Hinata dating Naruto. He himself had confronted Guy after things had settled down about the chakra he had seen in Naruto. It hadn't taken him long to put things together after Guy's reluctant confirmation that Naruto did indeed have a seal. With a bit of research, Neji realized that only a Jinchuriki could accomplish what Naruto had done. No other explanation would satisfy his second source of chakra, stamina and regenerative abilities. The Uchiha's curse seal was different. It had twisted, concentrated and stored the boy's own chakra. Naruto having the Kyuubi sealed within did much to explain most people's reaction to him. It spoke much for Naruto's character that he didn't give in to the demon. Neji wasn't sure he wouldn't have misused that particular power. He should not have been the one to marry the enemy. Naruto deserves better, Hinata said in a quiet yet fierce tone. Neji, instead of agreeing, pushed the conversation ahead, regardless of his agreement with her last statement. That matters not now. Naruto has been assigned that mission. From what I have gathered, Naruto will work tirelessly to avoid failing a mission, even if it is a treaty marriage. Hinata scowled at this. Naruto's famous persistence worked at cross purposes with her heart's dream. Biting fiercely into her dango, Hinata waited for Neji to continue on. More importantly, regardless of your romantic feelings for Naruto, he is your friend first. He is a friend going through a significant change in his life. Do not dishonor your friendship over an action of which he has no control. To be blunt, let go of your crush for him. That opportunity has passed. Neji finished calmly. Eyes closed, Hinata could only stutter. He was the one I wanted. Not out of duty, or because he was popular, but because I liked him even when no one else did. He is merely the first of our generation to be married out of duty, Hinata. We are shinobi of the leaf. We are called to serve even with our bodies. For those of us in prominent clans, our ability arranged marriages are often how that form of service occurs. We both will likely walk that path if our clan does not get to us first. There are other forms that duty can take. Neji answered honestly. He had occasionally pondered this very question, trying to determine who was better off, himself or Lee. Lee had the freedom to love and marry whoever he chose, while Neji was bound, however, by his status as a Hyuga. Though vexing, Neji only knew for certain that both he and Lee were better off than Tenten. She, Neji was certain, would likely receive the types of mission kunoichi were called to perform in several years. Using her body as a weapon to kill her targets or get close enough to steal information. Before we continue on to the meeting, I have a final piece of advice. Naruto followed up with me after the invasion to ensure his lesson sunk in. He told me, life isn't fair. All you can do is keep getting up and move on. No amount of crying or heartache will change it. The question you must answer, Hinata, is if you will get up and move on. Neji asked as he finished off their conversation and paid their tab.